Okay, ready to get rolling. So this morning, the 7th of June, um, I wanted to kind of start off by cleaning up our issue tracker a little bit. And what I mean cleaning it up means just kind of getting the homepage, the static homepage kind of updated with our new routes and then redeploying, because we've kind of messed around with deployment once and got it running and have not redeployed. And so this deployment process is newer in the class, at least on this Google Cloud. And so there'll be some troubleshooting, I'm sure, as always happens with deployment, right? So I am operating on a new laptop, so went ahead and got a lot of my tools installed, but you're going to notice I need to kind of redo some work, which is okay. Repetition is a good thing. And I need to bring down my issue tracker. Now, the thing about, if I go here, the thing about what we're not doing is we're not pushing our .env. So I will need to either recreate my .env is what I'm going to do. But in the future, for example, on your next hands-on test, I'm going to alter the instructions so that on your next hands-on test and maybe on some future assignments, you go ahead and push that .env up onto GitHub, realizing it's not a good thing to do for real-world production code, but in a learning environment, it's going to help me to have your .env files sent up to GitHub so I can pull them down. Remembering that when we set up a new repo and we choose node as our git ignore file, that template for a node is where it's basically setting to ignore the .env. So we have to go into our git ignores and we have to okay, now I cloned this into the documents GitHub. That's not where I wanted to put that. So let me go up a directory and move this, cut, and let's paste it on desktop right here. Let's paste right there. Okay. And now I go back here and it's going to say I can't find it, so let's locate it, and we moved it right here. Okay, so now you're happy. Again, kind of two-part process this morning. We're going to do some cleanup, and then we're going to redeploy. And again, the deployment is completely optional in this class, albeit recommended. And there will likely be some troubleshooting that we have to do and go through, and that will be okay. There always is. And so I've got this cloned on my computer. Now, I just ran the Visual Studio installer, and I really like, if I go to downloads and rerun my installer, I really like the ability to just right-click and open these checkboxes, open with code in Windows Explorer. I'm going to rerun this installer and give me those options because I like those options so much that it's worth rerunning the installer. Now, when I right-click Windows 11, I want to go back to my old context menu. Anyways, now I can open with code. The Windows 10, always trust Evan Gudmestead. Yes, I trust the authors. And I did push yesterday at the end of the day. I was working on a different computer, and one message that it's important for developers to hear at some point in their career is kind of push early and push often. And so, what you should be able to do is and I had a student tell me this one time, and I just kind of laughed. You should be able to take your laptop and throw it in a lake and not lose any code on any given day, right? So anytime you close that laptop lid, you want to make sure that you have committed and pushed your code so that you don't lose anything, right? So getting in the habit of pushing at the minimum, pushing daily, is just a good tip. Okay, and so I do know I do not have my .env file here. And so Grant, do me a favor and let's go through the .env. I believe we've got the host name, we've got a port, we've got a db underscore URL, I believe. And a db name. Can you hear me now, Grant? Let me pull that up over there. So let me go ahead and log in. Grant, when you make it back, let me know. Might have stepped away. Atlas is where I'm going to get this information. MongoDB Atlas. Let me go ahead and log in here. Oh, Grant, I can hear you, but your video stream has dropped for me. Let me restream. Stop streaming. Screens. Grant says I can hear you. Grant, can you say a few words? I'm going to see if you light up on my end.
Yes, I can see your screen now.
Okay, now we're good?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, cool. And back to VS Code. In the .env, were there 4 variables?
We have port, debug, db, URL, and db name.
Debug. So the one I'm forgetting is debug?
Yes.
Yep. So those 3 are correct that I have on my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So let's log into Mongo. And let's go connect drivers, Mongo driver. We're going to paste and update my password. Okay. Issue tracker password. Again, not worried about getting that out there. Back into DB name. Now if I go browse collections, issue capital T tracker, and debug is app : star from memory. What am I missing here? App debug?
No, it's not in quotes.
Not in quotes?
Matters, but ours is a capitalized letter.
It's what now?
It's all lowercase.
App : star?
Yep.
Okay. So that's the 5 fields that you have?
Yes, and at least on mine, both port and issue tracker aren't in quotes either.
Port and issue tracker are not in quotes. We'll keep that consistent. Okay. Now, that should be what I need to get up and running to npm run start dev. And it's running nodemon. Nodemon is not recognized, of course, when npm install -d nodemon. Install that as a developer dependency. There's nodemon. Okay, we're running. Of course, I'm probably not able to ping my database because I gotta let this IP address through. So let me go back to Atlas. Let me go network access. Current IP address not added. Ending in a 68. Deploying your changes. 68 includes your current IP. Let's go back. Visual Studio Code. That crashed. Let's close. Start it over. Now we're connected. Now we're pinged. Wonderful. Now, what I wanted to address is clicking this. Opens up here, and all of my URLs are old URLs. Actually, API users list still works because, well, I haven't changed the route. The route has stayed the same, and the data it returns now is from my database. So that is good on my end. Bugs list is just the same. Albeit I have not refactored my bugs yet because Grant did that yesterday. So let me kind of pull in that code that Grant did yesterday. Again, if I go into routes, bugs, you can kind of see this is still pulling from an array. So let me pause this and kind of pull in Grant's code from yesterday. Actually, maybe what I do is I throw this on the recording and just show the process of cloning Grant's repo, because it doesn't hurt. So I'd go back to GitHub, and I need to find here, and then I'll go to my settings, and then these are the repositories that are shared with me. And here is Grant's issue tracker. And I'll pull in this URL. It does look like his is up to date, so let's file clone repo. And I'm going to choose a different local path here. That is new folder, Grant, DESCHER. Select that folder, paste that repo. You can see here's his issue tracker. There's the issue tracker. Let's click clone. And so now I have his repo on my computer. So I'm going to go up here, and if I go into his routes, and here is bug. I just opened this with Notepad, and this is what we did at the end of yesterday. And I'm going to bring that into mine. So inside of bug, I'm going to delete my array and the new bug ID. And under list, and async, comma next, and get all bugs. I need to import, and on my database file, I'm also going to open his database.js in Notepad, and bring in all the functions that he wrote for bugs, and the export and the ping. Okay. Now, let's see. I'm booting it up, and it seems to me this seems like a database issue. The way it's stuck right here. However, let me go back to your bug and pull in the rest. I'm going to go from bug ID all the way down to the bottom. Just going to copy and paste the whole thing. So we refactored the list. I think we can just delete what we had, paste the new, clean all that up. It was pinging for a moment. We're going to have to give this a minute. So here I just realized I'm not calling ping. So let's call ping. Now we're connected and pinged. So it's interesting. You know, I was thinking about this the other day. When we run this command, npm, so it's working, right? npm run start dev. Notice this is a method call that's inside of database. And if I go into, let's start at the beginning, right? So npm run start dev, here's our script. This says to run server.js. So it says nodemon with the switch, server.js. And so it runs server, and this gets our express server up and running, right? But there's nothing in here that runs the database file, right? That calls the database file. So it is worth noting that this ping command, this is a method call. It's running the ping command that we wrote kind of up here that connects to our database and debugs pinged. Okay. So it's interesting just to note that even though there's nothing, necessarily calling this ping command because it's just hanging out on line 144, when we boot up our server, it sees it must look at this database file and call this ping command, and that's how we get even though our command nodemon is saying run server, and nothing in server is calling ping, right? So anyways, just an observation I made, thought I'd point that out. Now, I guess the couple things to do next is, since we kind of, this is at the end of yesterday's lab. However, let's get Postman in here and test a few of these routes that we have implemented, because this is all about cleanup. So I want to make sure our routes are working. And this is the web interface for Postman. I like the desktop app. So let's just do download Postman. Let's download it for Windows.
But essentially what happened a year after that, it sucks, but it could be a lot worse. So we go
Okay, so let's go into my workspace. And here's our bug tracker. Here's our bugs. List all bugs. So let's start with 5003. API bug list. We know this one's working. If I boot the server up, it'll be working. Couldn't find API bugs, plural. I believe it's plural. So let me refactor that. API bugs list. There we go. All right, so there's an ID. So let's find bug by ID on port 5003. So there's our bug by ID. Save that one. Let's just go through the whole gamut, right? So that's list, that's bug by ID. Let's do new, title, description, and steps to reproduce. Create new bug, body, title, description, steps to reproduce. 5003, looks like a put maybe. Post, API bug new. API bugs new bug app crash 2. So if I go back to my list, there we go. Back to the code. There's our new. This is updating. So we're going to update a bug, and we're allowed to update the title. So let's give a bug ID. Copy the bug ID, update bug by ID, paste the ID, bugs, body, title. It was saying app crash 2. And I'm just going to update this to app crash when purchase made. 5003. Bug updated. List all bugs. App crash when purchase made. Good stuff. So that's update, classify. We read the classification. And there's a bug ID. Are we reading anything from the body? It doesn't look like. So /bug ID /classify bug. And let's paste in my bug ID. Classify bug. Paste /classify 5003. It's worth some thought on whether this should be singular or plural, bugs or bug. Maybe singular is the right call. Bugs list or bug list. Bug list is, probably making that singular is the right call. In hindsight, classification unapproved. So let's click that. Bug classified. List all bugs. Classification unapproved. And probably the most unique one is bug ID, where we need to get the user ID from the body. assign to user ID and the bug ID from the parameter. So bug ID assign bug to a user, paste that bug ID, and let's get assigned to user ID. If I go to my user list, looks like Evan Gudmested. So I go back to my here, right there. Okay. 5003. And was it a put? It is a put. Sorry, couldn't find bug. Maybe I didn't pull in the right bug. List all bugs. Is it bugs? There we go. Bug ID assigned. And if I go to my list all bugs, now I have assigned to user ID, full name, role, developer, and an assigned on and a classified on. Awesome. That was the hardest one yesterday, I think. Then close, pretty straightforward. Close comes from rec.body. So let's go close bug. Let's paste in a bug ID that we're working with here. List all bugs. Grab my bug, close. Get out of here. There we go. I must have copied, yeah, I copied the string on that. Did not mean to copy that. List all bugs. And there we go, paste. API bugs 5003. Body closed is false. And it's a put. Bug closed. And back to list all bugs. Bug closed of false. Now, maybe we would only do closed on if that was set to true. But nonetheless, it's working how we coded it. And so all of our routes from yesterday are now working on my computer. It's good to go through it twice. Now, what next? Let's update our front end. Remember, our front end is under public index. And we have our API bugs list and our API users list links. And so if I scroll down here and close, just kind of rerun this, our two links here are working. Users returns the users from the database. Bugs returns bugs from the database. Here's all of the last one that I just created, right? So all that's in there. These aren't working, and certainly there's no bugs working. And so let's maybe update these users links. The way that you can do that is, now, this is a static file, so you have to change it statically. In the real world, you'd use a front end of React, right? So we're going to learn React to be a little bit more dynamic on the front end versus having these static front end files. But for now, let's pin Postman. Just made sure to pin Visual Studio. And if I list all bugs, and it looks like I've got 1, 2, 3 bugs. And so we can hard code this route. It's a relative route into our front end. And so we got users and bugs. Just like we have here, Bootstrap list. Let's paste that. And instead of user 1, this becomes bug 1, bug 2, bug 3. We're going to do a little bit more, just a little bit more with this because I'm going to wire up a little bit of a front end to work with some of these different routes manually. So bug 1 and the route is a relative path to API. We don't need that / API bugs like such. And that gets us to our first bug. And if I boot that up, you can see that's a single bug. Then the process is just repeated for our other 2 bugs. We just need that bug ID. And so maybe we just copy this path. I think there's 3 bugs. So we'll just do it for 3, paste, and paste, and just update the bug ID. So my second bug ID is here. And paste that. Again, this is just interestingly enough, our object ID is identical minus the last number. I wouldn't think it would be auto-incrementing, and it's not because this one is C8. Let's replace that bug ID, C8. Back to the front end. Refresh this. I thought I deleted that 4th one. No, I did not delete it. Let's delete it. Save. Refresh. Now we got 3 bugs. And that brings us to back to our users. List is good. We'll update these links up top. And then we're going to we'll wire up a form to insert a bug or insert a user or something using our routes. Next. So for our user, so easy to get so much going on in here. Let's just kind of save all. Save, close, save, close, save, close, save, close, save, close. Now if I list all users and find user by ID, these are the 2 I need. Hit you, hit you. Okay. So would I even have 2 users right now? So let's go back to my source code. Let's pull in this route. That brings in my second user, so let's just copy that into my path here. User 2, API users, we don't need a user 3 for now. And we'll paste that for user 1 as well, just update the actual ID with that user ID. Okay. Now, user 1, user 2, bug 3. Now my links are working with the database. The last piece, just get these nav links up here to go to API user list and API bug list. And refresh now, refresh this. API user list, API bug list. Okay. Let's get Bootstrap docs. Let's do a nav bar. Kind of want to do a drop down, right? So here's a drop down menu. That is an unordered list inside of an unordered list. And so here's my navbar link. Now, I did a navbar without an unordered list. So maybe that's a good idea. Maybe not. So let's go to drop down. Here's LI drop down. Okay. Drop down. Okay, this will work, I believe. So I'm going to copy this entire LI for the nav item drop down that has a list within it. So let's kind of go in here, and I just want to paste this. Maybe under users. And go back to my page. See that nav bar dropped down. Okay. And I just want to change this to say users, and then I'll have a list, right? So this drop down will say users, and this will be list, and then so I'll make this clickable, right? So this will be API users list. So now I can delete this first one because this link is here now. And then I'll say add. Yes, sir.
Where did you put the drop down list?
So I put the drop down list. I had two links. I had a link for bugs and I had a link for users. I put it underneath the link for users, and then I deleted that link for users. So it's basically it goes like this. It goes you have a div class of navbar nav, and then you have the drop down list. So basically the answer right now is right underneath the class of navbar nav, I have this LI. Okay, so you can see I can click on this. And let me refresh. Yeah, it doesn't work very well. So you can see that is a clickable link, but it actually doesn't navigate. So I'm going to refactor that. So under users, my first one will be all users. So instead of add new user, I'll make that my second one. Add new user will be here, and this will be list all users. And my href is API users list. And now here, I'll just make another static file because I need to basically go to a web form, right? So I'll go add user HTML. Refresh users, list all users. And you can see add user HTML doesn't exist because we haven't created it. Are you good to go with your navbar there, Grant?
No, I think I'm just pasting it in incorrectly. I'm not.
Okay, let me pause here and help you out. And so Grant's error that I just took a look at basically boiled down to the navbar on Bootstrap. Docs. You can see this one I pulled from has an unordered list. Well, there's also a navbar that you can do without unordered lists. And so when we did this originally, we did a navbar without unordered list links. And he's basically getting HTML validate. to basically say, hey, this isn't going to validate. And, we could refactor it, but it's working code. It'll work in Bootstrap. And so we kind of left off with our list all users link and an add new user. So there's an HTML file, add user.html. And that's what we need to create. So inside of public, we're going to create add user HTML. And on Bootstrap docs, I always get started. If you click on getbootstrap.com, then you click on the docs. I always start with the template that has the CDN for the JavaScript and the CSS for Bootstrap. So I'd go back here, copy this, which is number 2, including the Bootstrap CSS and JS, and kind of paste that and change this to doc type. Okay, and now if I kind of go back to my page, refresh, users, add user, and now add user HTML, add user HTML. Path looks good. Let me find my mistake. Had a very simple one-liner piece of code that I needed to add to basically serve up all of the files inside of my public folder. And very thankfully, when you go to Express and search for serving static files in Express, they give you the command right here. This is something that we did earlier, but was not in my code. So app.use express.static public, which I added with all my other. Keep in mind these are considered middlewares. When you have app.use, you're registering middleware. Anyways, app.use express.static. Now add that one line. Now if I go back there, you can see add user is now bringing up hello world. So under here, add new user, now we're cooking. All right, so next up, we want to work on our add user form. And we need to make a web form that's Bootstrap friendly, and we've done this once, and it's going to post to our add user route. And so on Bootstrap's docs, there is a section for forms, and we got some form fields. One thing that I never liked about forms is they go 100% width of the container that they're in. So we'll put it inside some sort of a container. But it's pretty straightforward. You got labels that are associated with the controls, and you could each control you can put it in its own div with some margin to kind of separate them out. So we can kind of maybe just copy that, or better yet, just code up our own. Method is a post, and the action goes to our route. And I believe our route for posting a new user, if we go to add user, API user register. So let's throw that action in there, and let's do a button type of submit, and throw a Bootstrap class, button primary. And I just want to kind of maybe inside of our route make sure that route is getting hit, even though it's not going to be valid because, well, we don't have the data yet to send over. So let's go to our routes, users. What's register, new user route hit. So we should get a debug if we click that button. And here, if I refresh users, add new user, we have a submit button. And it gives us our error message, and of course that's a good thing. New user route hit. So we are hitting our route when we're posting, and so our form is set up. I'm going back to my HTML now, and div class of container. So do a little container around all of this. Close the div. Now format document with prettier. Okay, so there's our container around everything. Then I'll just do div dot row, div with a class call -4 times 3. Then you hit tab. That'll make 3 columns inside of your row, evenly distributed. If you remember your Bootstrap, you got to add your rows up to 12. So 4, 4, and 4 adds 12. Let's throw our form in the middle column. And format document with pretty. There's a hotkey for that, and I believe I remember that. But okay, so now what does our route need? If we go to add a new user from the body, we need all these things: email, password, given, family, role, and full name. So let's start with a div. So each control is going to be its own div. There will be a label. Text. Let's start with email. Input with an ID of email. So input pound email, hit tab. Input ID. Type is text. You can change the type to email. Self-closing tag. Now the name is the important attribute here, because remember the name is going to be what needs to match the key in your JavaScript. So the name here of email is, when you post this data, its email is going to, this is going to be required for your key. So and this ID here needs to match this email here. That way that label is associated with that. Go back to the Bootstrap docs. Either one of those are the Bootstrap docs. So we have a label for, okay, now the Bootstrap stuff. Class of form label and class of form control. So to get these labels and inputs formatted right, we need to add that. So this class of form label, and this has a class of form control. And now if I boot that page up, refresh, I don't need to refresh the post. I refresh that. Okay, this is what it's looking like. Maybe I'll add a h1 class of text primary, Add new user. And click on email. It focuses the email. Now, if I type in Bob, I should get some front-end validation here because a type of email. So I get a little HTML validation, but I can, if I do bob@gmail.com and submit, now it's not saying email required. Now it's saying password required. So it's being sent to our server. The email address is being sent to our server. So that's good. So that name associated with the email is the important part. Let's make another div. Margin bottom 3 just to give some space between our controls. Now I'm just going to copy this. Right, this is going to be password, text password. Type of password, ID is txt password, name has to match, which we have password, so simple enough, name is password, and form control. So that's our password field, and refresh. Bob@gmail, password 1234, submit, full name is required, so on and so forth.
So, for the main purpose of this, because that is the reason why it's not.
Again, given name, family name are the next ones. So let's do one at a time. Let's do given name. Text, given name. Now, we'll say first name here. Type is text. ID is text given name. Name is given. In the JavaScript, it's given capital N on the name. So there's our given name, aka first name. Let's do another one for family name, which will be last name, text, family name, text family name, type of text, first, last. It makes no sense to ask them for their first and their last and then have them prompt for their full, but that's where we're at. Now, role, let's give them a drop-down list, right? I don't think we need to. We'll give them a couple options from role. So back on the Bootstrap docs, a select list, right? So here's our select list. Copy that. Div class MB3. Paste in our select. Okay, so I want to put my name here of role. I want to set value to empty quotes, so they have to select a role, and I'll say developer. And I want to look at my data, list all users, developer, capital D, technical manager. Okay. So value. So let's see what that looks like.
Right.
Back, refresh. We'll make this say please select a role. Please select a role. And maybe this value being empty is a problem. Because okay, once full name, I'm actually going to change a little bit of our back end because, I mean, really, if they give you the first and the last, we can combine that. So let's go to user, register. Let's take out full name. And then we can take out this else if. And then we'll take out full name colon will be our given name plus space plus family name. So in the event that they have a given and a family, we'll populate the full name. So we don't have to prompt the user for a full name. And then we'll send that over. Right, that makes sense. Full name property, concatenate a string together of the given name plus the family name. So now if I refresh, Bob, 1, 2, 3, 4, Bob Smith, and I select a role, it says role is required. That's good. If I say developer, hey, Bob Smith added. Go back here, list all users, Bob Smith added from the front end. And that's what I wanted. So back to my index. We accepted add user, email, password, given, family, role, and we made the full name. Gave inserted ID, and I just wanted to show how to kind of statically wire up these routes that we made through not just through Postman, but through an HTML file. And so close that, and that's what I was looking for. Back, refresh, email, password, first name, last name, and role. What do you think, Grant? We doing good?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So, I would consider that the cleanup that I wanted to do this morning. So I'll stop this recording here because what's coming next is a redeployment to Google Cloud.